Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 291, being recorded on March 12th, 2014. I'm Ryan Schrout.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
And I'm Maury Titleman.
And Jeremy is out on injury, workplace injury, we'll call it.
Let's call it AD migration issues.
AD, Athletics Directory. Yeah. I don't see. Yeah, Active Directory. It sounds Is that a Microsoft thing? Because
It might be, Mr. Computer Sciences.
Look, they didn't teach us Active Directories in computer science class. All right, we learned Java. Thank you very much.
Oh no.
And like C and P. I don't know what else we did. It's not important because that was
Pascal.
Pascal. I grew up on Pascal.
COBOL.
I remember I took a course that was called History of Programming, and every week we learned like the very basics of a different programming language, and we had to write a program, to do something simple in that language, and we did it every week for whatever 12 weeks or whatever it is. And I can't remember the name of the language. If somebody in the chat room knows it, it'll be great. It was a language that only existed in recursion. The only way, there were no if statements, there was nothing like that. It was a language that only existed with recursion, and anytime you wanted to do anything, you had to go into your.
I'm assuming it's Lisp.
Lisp sounds like it, I guess. So, and I hated it with a passion, because recursion is one of those things that was very hard to wrap my mind around in school. Anyway, moving on. Thanks for joining us. We're a hardware podcast, not a programming podcast, so we'll move on to some other things. We record this live at pcper.com/live on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We're in daylight time now instead of standard time, right? Yep, cool, great. Got to adjust something on the site because it says the next live event's not for 44 minutes. That's my fault. Forgot all about that. However, if you want to know when we're going to go live, right? And you would normally check the schedule on our website. You can go to pcper.com/subscribe, though, and sign up for this little mailing list. All you give us is your name, your email. We send you a note when we're going to go live. Sometimes it's 20 minutes beforehand. Sometimes it's 2 minutes beforehand. But the point is we get you an email. We let you know when we're going to go live. And it's always good to be known when things are going to happen. I don't know. Also, this is the last day that you can enter for this. I think it's supposed to end actually tomorrow. So even if you're listening to this after recording, it may be too late. But if you want to win one of 5 GeForce GTX 750 Ti graphics cards, courtesy of NVIDIA and PC Perspective, go to the site. We're still on the front page there. You can put in the search "win GeForce GTX 750," and you can win a GTX 750 Ti if you show us your maybe your crappy PC that needs to be turned into a gaming PC, right?
Don't show us anything else, okay?
Yeah, please. You're sending us links to images, so it could be very dangerous. We need a picture of your machine. You can use Imager for this, CPU-Z and GPU-Z screenshot, and then we ask you, hey, why don't you subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our mailing list? And those are actually optional, but hey, we'd love it if you did. Just putting that out there. So it was an interesting week. Alan, you just got back today. Can you tell us where you were at?
I was in California.
Oh, okay. And is that as far as we're allowed to go?
Well,
Excremento, California.
if I go any further than California, I end up in the ocean.
Are you allowed to say anything else about where you're at?
Yes. So Intel had a solid state drive, basically a big press thing with their group, their NAND, basically NSG.
What does that stand for?
I wish I could remember.
Is it Services Group? Something like that?
MSG, it's monosodium glutamate.
No, this is N.
It roughs up your tongue. Really?
Yeah. MSG? No, MSG. Yeah, I know.
No, not that.
Oh, okay.
So basically, all the guys that deal with the design, certification, everything that has to do with making their SSDs, basically, right?
Okay.
It's it's not the plant where they're making them; it's the office environment where they're
deciding
doing,
what to build.
Like the certification of them and the burn-in testing, that kind of stuff that you would do on
so we don't have
soon-to-be released model or.
So when's your travelogue coming out, Alan? Because you're just fascinating with that. So I flew on Southwest Airlines to Phoenix, and I got on the wrong plane. In fact, I stayed on the wrong plane.
yes, that was also fun.
So I guess the event that you went out to, we don't have content of today, but we will have content of shortly.
Correct. We do not have stuff today, but during this week, we're going to put a piece up just talking about their basically how they certify a drive for release.
And it's
even
slightly
a firmware
more complex than people would possibly.
Does it involve monkeys and typewriters? Because I think that would be an awesome certification.
No, but it is more.
Because eventually somebody will type in an address that is invalid.
Okay, all right. So we're gonna move on to other stuff, but you reminded me of something, and I wanted to bring this up. I heard this on a different podcast.
Uh-oh.
I think it was, it was an amazing mental exercise for me. So the whole thing, infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters will eventually write Macbeth, right? Like that type of thing.
Yeah, the entire works of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the idea of this was, okay, you know that a TV is made up of X number of pixels, and each pixel has X number of RGB LEDs in it, 3, right?
Eventually, you will see a picture of Pamela Lee and Tommy.
If you have it randomly go through or sequentially go through every combination of RGB and pixel, you will eventually see everything that has ever happened, everything that will ever happen, everything that could ever exist. Like you would see all of infinity.
Wasn't that a Tom Cruise movie?
I don't know.
That would take a long time to go through all that.
Right. So, I don't know. I thought that was like somebody mentioned that to me. I go, you know what? You're right. Like eventually, the whole infinite TV screens, infinite people watching TV screens. So you would eventually see like what the year 2500 looked like. You maybe wouldn't know.
Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't know.
You wouldn't know what you were seeing, but you would.
Because it's flashing by at 60 hertz.
Well, I'm saying you could have that screen up for 5 seconds each time, right? We're not putting a timetable.
No,
on this.
you couldn't.
I mean, you couldn't do it even if it flashed by at 120. Right. It's interesting. Somebody do some research on it and let me know. I want a paper by the end of the week. Ken, this is your assignment.
Oh.
Let's talk about some reviews, though, getting away from the theoretical random crap that popped into my head. Josh had a review of the EVGA GTX 780 ACX double BIOS.
No,
card.
I didn't.
You did. It's got your name on it.
It's from the future.
We're seeing this from a random collection of pixels that congealed onto the screen as a 780 review.
No, I hired one monkey in particular. Very talented.
So this is not an overclocked card, but it is not a reference card either.
Well, okay. There's been some debate there.
Okay.
Some people are saying that it is a reference PCB, but I got back with EVGA and they're like, no, it would be not considered reference. So take that as you will, because there is a certain amount of marketing speak. But what it does have is a dual BIOS functionality. And if you can look on the back here, well, as best you can, that little thing controls the different BIOSes. It's the BIOS switches. So you can change that up, and it either goes at stock BIOS, which is literally the stock speeds for the GTX 780, and you go to the updated BIOS. It's the same speeds, however, they increase your fan speeds from like 35% and 80% to 20% and 100%. So you can really crank this up loud if you want it. And then it also increases the power. What is that called? The power in NVIDIA terms? Power target by some 7 watts at the top end. So instead of like 295 watts, it's 302 watts. And so it gives you a little bit more headroom in thermals and cooling and a little bit more power. Now, what's, of course, the most interesting thing about this is the cooling on this. This is one of EVGA's first real kind of hardcore cooling that they're competing with the MSIs and the Asus of the world and all those other guys. It's a dual fan unit. It's nice and thick. It's got 2 big heat sinks in there. It's got something like 5 heat pipes going from the GPU to the first card, and then to the first heatsink, then to the second.
This ACX cooler is one that they've used on quite a few cards, I guess, recently. It started with like the 600, like the 680 maybe or something. And they kind of have used it on their higher end SKUs. Yeah.
Yeah, and now it goes, kind of from top to bottom. I think the lowest end SKU with ACX is a 760. Or do they have a 750 that has ACX?
They have a 750 Ti, Ken says as he looks across the room.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it goes from top to bottom. And you know what? It is an effective cooling solution. EVGA, they serve the United States primarily and North America. Canadians and Mexicans don't apply always.
Yeah.
Have I gone way past the PC with even mentioning? Okay, let's just say North America.
Yes, let's do.
Okay. But anyway, they're one of NVIDIA's primary partners. They are usually the first out of the gate with models from that group. And whenever you go to any kind of LAN, big experience, like PDX,
QuakeCon, those types of things, yeah.
EVGA usually is hand in hand with NVIDIA, and they're showing off the cards, they're giving away to people, and so they're pretty close to the company. And it's kind of nice to see that EVGA is starting to branch out a little bit, have a little bit more interesting product stack that is not just NVIDIA reference PCB, NVIDIA reference cooling. They offer some differentiation, and they offer them pretty much at retail prices, MSRP. And so this is a $519 card. It's $20 more than a reference GTX 780, but a reference, of course, doesn't have the dual BIOS. It doesn't have the ACX cooling. So, I mean, they're right in where they should be in terms of pricing. And, I've used this actually for quite a while in the test rig, and it's just dead quiet. And it's not only dead quiet, but it cools really, really well. Something that's kind of interesting with these cards, this one, I believe it went up to, 966 megahertz under boost conditions.
Okay.
And I think, 903 megahertz is the official boost speed of the card, but of course it goes much higher. I've had anecdotal evidence from another user who piped up in the review. His goes up into the 993 megahertz.
Yeah,
range.
there's going to be some variance, yeah.
Yeah, and it just stays there. And so you've got some extra performance under the hood with any one of these cards than usually what is stock. I mean, yeah, we may only see 5, 10, 15 megahertz in some samples, but in this one is about 50 megahertz. The other guy was 90 megahertz. I mean, it was pretty impressive. So the performance of this card, very good. It's got 3 gigs of RAM, which is good for high-resolution gaming. I've been using a GTX 780 in my 3-screen panel, 5760 by 1200. And it just has no problems with that. And so this is going to do very well as a single card in 2560 by 1600 and beyond. It's got plenty of performance. It's got plenty of memory space.
Any particular benchmark worth noting here? Like I've got Battlefield 3 2560 by 1600 brought up. It's the best single card you have in your comparisons here, beating out the 770 280X, right? Obviously, 280X Crossfire is going to be faster. 270X Crossfire too.
And
but
what's kind of interesting is in quite a few applications, this card is about as fast as a 270 Crossfire solution. And of course, until you get the frame pacing driver that goes in Eyefinity, then this is probably going to be a better bet for multi-monitor gaming than the AMD older generation stuff, the non-290 290X. So this is actually around the 290, the vanilla 290 price tag, and it's about the same speed, right, of the 290, or is the 290 a little bit higher?
I think this is faster than the 290 because the 290's MSRP is $399. The target,
Yeah, the target.
what it's supposed to be is $399, and this is supposed to be like the reference would be $499. Is that right? For the 780.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this is a little bit faster than the 290 is. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to be a whole lot.
No.
But of course, you can't buy
you can
a
buy
290
this
for $399. You can buy as many of these as you want for $519. And in fact, sometimes they go on special for a little bit less. Not much, mind.
Is your favorite part about this card the poster that it comes with?
That is a sweet, sweet poster. My wife wants that hanging up front and center in her living room.
Oh, I tried to give it to Ken, and he didn't want to take it. Do you believe that? I had one of those. Game of Pawns.
Yeah. So, overall, it was a really good card. It was something that I was kind of impressed with from EVGA, that they actually had really good cooling. They had the option to have, the secondary BIOS. And in fact, you can flash the second BIOS to anything you want. Just, be sure to save the original there. But you can do all kinds of things with this if you want to mess around with the power targets, fan speeds, whatever. There are some editing programs out there. There are some third-party BIOSes that you can utilize for this. And you're running a pretty low risk because you can always snap it back to the original BIOS, boot it up, go to the secondary, and reflash it. And you'll be, back in business, and it's not going to be a big deal. So for $519, yes, it's a lot of money for most people. The performance you get is good. The quality is pretty good. As far as I can tell, I've been using this for a couple of months, and the test machine, and it's been kind of flawless. And one thing that I really need to touch on is EVGA works really, really hard on their community. They work really hard on their support. Even though this has, just a 3-year warranty, their support is pretty fantastic. Again, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence out there for how well they treat their customers. You register your product, you sign into the forums. If you have a problem, you go in there and you post about it. You contact EVGA. They look over your post, they look over your user, they look over everything, and they make sure that you're taken well care of. Like one of the guys in the articles who posted on it, he said he had 2 of the GTX 680s that just went belly up. And he said he was treated right. He gave him a card number. They didn't charge his card. They cross-shipped the cards.
Yeah, cross-ship's awesome.
He was up and running within days rather than what it would usually take, maybe 2 or 3 weeks from other manufacturers. So cool. That's one positive thing that EVGA can offer, is that they really, really, really work on the community and support.
And Josh, to add on to that, I think EVGA is one of the few manufacturers that will actually let you swap out the cooler for either an aftermarket air cooler or a water cooler, and it will not void the warranty on the card.
Yeah,
and plus then they have their trade-up program. So if you buy a card, you register it, and within 90 days, like NVIDIA surprises you with a higher-end card, you can talk to EVGA, get a discount on the second, send this one in, and you're kind of up and running with a higher-end card instead of just saying, well, maybe I'll eBay this one, and hopefully I'll get some money out of it, and I want to buy this new one. They'll do the trade-up program. So, but be careful with that. Read the rules, and ask around about it.
Right.
Be sure to
makes
register.
Sense. Maury, since you spoke up, let's talk real quickly here about the Silverstone Argon series AR01. Is this the first of the Argon series? Is that the name here? This is a CPU cooler that I like the color on it. It's bright.
Yeah, the AR01 is our mainstream cooler. It's really not meant to be an enthusiast cooler, but I mean it performed really well. The only problem I really had with it was on Haswell. during the overclocking, the CPU started throttling, and what is it?
How high of an overclock were we running at?
I was running a 4.7 on a 4770K. The interesting thing with that is it will support dual fans, but I found that a single fan was enough. I mean, dual fans increase the noise by a good 10 to 15 dB. Let me see here. I think, which is pretty. Oh, actually, sorry, it was about 10 dB. But it only decreased the temperatures by a degree or two centigrade, so it really wasn't worth the noise increase. But the mounting mechanism wasn't great. It was about what you get standard for an aftermarket air cooler. The cool thing on it was the way that the fans mounted to the radiator. They actually had rubber mounts on it that were very easy to put on and take off. So I actually held the fan in place, as well as acting as noise and vibration dampening. So it was
That's cool.
That was a really neat thing. I really would like to see designs like that more on other coolers.
How much?
Yeah,
what's this cost?
Oh, that one is, I think, is like $35. It's not. It's very cheap. It's a very cheap cooler for
not
the
cheap.
performance.
It's inexpensive.
well, I don't know. I mean, compared to most of the other coolers I test, that's cheap. I mean,
Euphemisms. Take a rule out of the book of George Carlin. Euphemisms. Have you never heard that?
So even though it doesn't perform as well as some of the higher end, I mean, most of the stuff that we do test tends to be much more expensive and much higher end. I mean, is it, if you don't want to spend $80 on a cooler, but you're okay spending 35, and you definitely don't want to use the stock Intel one, is this like a good option, or do you think there are other ones out there?
Yeah, this would be a really great option. I mean, the fact that that the system didn't crash on the Ivy Bridge or on the Haswell system, and there was just, I mean, and when I say there was throttling, there was maybe a 3 to 5% throttling on a Haswell run.
Okay.
But the fact that it didn't crash and it held temp stable and all during the run is amazing for this cooler. So,
and
this cooler you could use this,
how complex is installation? I'm kind of looking through your installation page here.
It's not bad. It's a standard. What it is you have the crossbars that go on the board itself, and then you have another crossbar. You have the two crossbars on the board, and then you have another crossbar that holds the cooler in place. It's a little bit hard to get on because with that kind of system, it tends to wobble a lot. It takes, Josh's three-handed method sometimes. But it's not bad. I mean, a lot of air coolers use that dual crossbar method. So
All right, cool. We posted a story this week. In case anybody didn't know, Titanfall was released on Tuesday. You may still not be able to play it. We haven't really been able to play it very well here, either on Xbox One or on the PC. But Titanfall came out on Tuesday, and this is kind of the big multiplayer shooter game to be released this spring. It's kind of like the first big Xbox One release since the console was actually released. And I won't get into much of how bad the servers were running on Tuesday, and how they still... have we even been able to complete like a match today? We tried to play like 2 on the Xbox One today, and both of us, I think we kicked us both out to the main menu on that, which is always
to make
awesome.
room for the dirty PS4 users.
Well, this is not out on PS4, so that would be difficult.
Okay.
Thing.
Xbox One.
It's Xbox One and PC only. It's using the Microsoft Cloud Gaming stuff, which is obviously going swimmingly. However, all that being said, when you do get to play it, it is quite fun. So we posted a little article with a accompanying video that was basically building a gaming PC for Titanfall. What's nice about Titanfall, depending on your point of view, is that it doesn't require a whole lot of hardware to run. And in fact, we were able to build a system using a Core i3 processor with an 887 motherboard and a GTX 750 Ti, and we could run at 1080p, top settings without a problem, right? And that's a $179 video card. Our full Amazon kind of build out here is like 780, and that comes with your operating system, 500-watt power supply case, a standard hard drive, that type of thing. And that I think that's pretty reasonable. We had some people in the comments, some people in our YouTube channel commenting that, hey, you should have used this part. It's save $30 here, and you could use this part, you save $30 here. And I don't think we ever claimed that this was the least expensive system you could build to play Titanfall. Just that this was an inexpensive system that you can build that will not only play Titanfall, but do other things as well. You want to do media work, you want to do other games, you want to have upgrade options and capabilities down the road. This is a good platform for that. That targeted 1920 by 1080. We also did a system that targeted 2560 by 1440, and just a couple of changes, really. We upgraded the processor from a Core i3 4330 to a Core i5 4670K, and then we upgraded the graphics card to a GTX 770, either the MSI or the Asus one here, depending on what you want to do. And I also went ahead and changed over to an SSD. This is the 840 EVO 250 gig drive, selling for $139. You're still going to have capacity issues if you build a system with a 250 gig SSD and only a 250 gig SSD, considering Titanfall takes up 50 of those gigs right off the bat.
38 of it being audio.
Which is stupid as hell, but whatever. Idiots.
It's uncompressed. Sounds better on your high-end speaker wires.
I think there wasn't their excuse, right? Well, this will help it run better on low-end systems or something. It's like,
Have they never heard of FLAC?
Decompressing FLAC or AUG or something can take how many CPU cycles?
It's like a fraction of a percent at this point on a modern CPU.
So this system was like just under $1,200. This was a good option we came up with. Again, not the least expensive system to run at 25 by 14, but a system to run at 25 by 14. And also, it turns out you can buy. Did you ever hear the QNIX brand of those? It's another one of those type Korean 25 by 14 monitors. You can buy it on. We found it on Amazon for as low as $337, which is nice, because with Amazon you got a return policy. You know what you're dealing with there. And then for the crazy people out there that want to play in 4K and you own one of the $2,900 Asus PQ321 monitors, you can get away with, I think, a single GTX 780 Ti fairly easily. You could probably even go back to a GTX 780 and play Titanfall at 4K at max settings. But I tried to give you a little bit more room here, because when you start to play other games at 4K, you're going to want more of that GPU horsepower. Upgraded to 4770K, we've got a larger SSD because, hey, you're made of money, and upgraded power supply as well. So $1,800 for that system. Again, nothing too substantial, nothing drastic out of this. Titanfall is, I think it's a little bit, I think the developers at Respawn would be a little bit aggravated when you say stuff like, oh, it's based on the Source engine, because I think that's what the Call of Duty engine was based on. Is that right? I think it had Source things in it still, and this is as well. But I mean, visually, it's really dog.
It's shaking her.
Yeah, visually it's dramatically different than what you would see in Source. It's a pretty good looking game, considering how well it runs on a wide array of hardware. So if you're interested in kind of what our system build options were for Titanfall, check out that piece. We have it on the site or on our YouTube channel. Finally, for our reviews section, NVIDIA today announced the GeForce GTX 800M series. With a new technology called battery boost. So before you get super overly excited, the GTX 800M, consisting of the 880, 870, 816, 850, is most of the high-end parts are still, well, the high-end parts are still Kepler, right? The 880 and the 870 are still Kepler. Actually, if you look at this table down here, you can see 880 and 870 are still Kepler. If you compare the 880 to the 780, you're getting essentially just a frequency uptick from 823 base to 954 base. Everything else remains the same except for this battery boost technology I'll mention in a second. The 770 to the 870, now keep in mind these are mobility only parts. These are only things that are happening as of today. You're actually going from 960 CUDA cores to 1344. So you actually get a pretty sizable boost in performance there, and you get a frequency jump from 811 to 941 on the boost side, and a little bit of a memory boost as well. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe more interesting is what you see in the lower end of this segment. The GTX 860M will come in Kepler or Maxwell flavors with 1152 or 640 shader cores, clock speeds of 797 or 1029 megahertz, and up to 2 gigs of
You know what?
memory.
I love a little confusion in
Yeah.
my choices for graphics when I'm looking at like Dell.com or HP.com. Oh, it's an A60M.
Yeah.
What is it running?
It's so odd to me, you know, and when I questioned them on this, they were essentially like, well, you know, in the mobile segment, all that really matters is performance. The model numbers indicate performance. They don't necessarily indicate features or generations or whatever. And I go, that's great. But that's how the rest of the world works as well. It's really not that different than what you get on the mobile side. Case in point, GTX 750 Ti is not built in the same architecture as the 760 or the 770 or the 780, but its model number is indicative of its performance place in the stack. So the fact that they're going to have an 860M using Kepler and an 860M using Maxwell, we were trying to figure out why they would do this. The thing that I came up with that I think is more realistic is that maybe they have quite a few Kepler GPUs sitting around with 1152 GPU cores that they are going to sell at a lower price point than the Maxwell cores. Because if the performance is the same between the 860M Kepler and the 860M Maxwell, why would a vendor ever choose Kepler instead of Maxwell? Maxwell will have better power efficiency, resulting in better battery life, thinner designs, et cetera, et cetera. So the only way they could get people to keep buying Kepler is if it's less expensive. And the only reason I could think that they would sell a less expensive part that has the same performance level as a more expensive part is if they have trouble making that many Maxwells or they have too many Keplers. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm real curious about the power draw of the two different types of models. One's got essentially double the shader count, but we've got to assume that the megahertz rating is lower for that. So where exactly does that cross over with megahertz and performance?
Yeah.
And, you know, again, how does power scale? They don't tell us anything.
No, and the mobile GPU market's even more weird, right? Because like these clock speeds are bases, but any OEM can take any one of these parts and modify frequencies up a little bit probably or down some if they want to meet certain thermal TDP limits, right? So in order to get in a specific chassis size, they have to lower it, then they'll do that. So you can have an 860M on Kepler running at 700 megahertz instead of 797 maybe, right? And that's still considered the same part. So the mobile landscape is particularly confusing already. And now that you're adding in, well, the 860M could be this architecture or could be this architecture, it changes a lot. Moving on, the GTX 850M is based on Maxwell and only Maxwell, right? So, but what's interesting is it's essentially the same thing as the 860M, 640 cores versus 640 cores, but at a lower frequency. And you can see how those compare to the 750 and 750M. There are also, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, on the 860M, is the Kepler going to have the battery boost on it? I mean, does Kepler support battery boost?
Yeah, so battery boost is a technology NVIDIA is launching with this whole family that what they're basically saying will, let me actually go to the next page here, will increase the amount of battery life, the amount of time you'll be able to game on the battery of a laptop. And it's completely automatic. It's kind of built into the GeForce experience and the Optimus bundle of software. And how they're doing this is a combination of two things. One is if you look at this graph, they're going to use frame rate targeting, which is if you have a game that's playing at a high frame rate.
Otherwise known as FART.
Frame rate targeting, FRT. Yeah, good. Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Tap will be exceptionally happy.
Yeah, especially the bot in the chat room. Yeah. So what they basically are doing is they're saying, here's a baseline frame rate, 30 frames per second in this particular instance. Anything that you would normally render above that is wasting compute cycles, and thus it's wasting power. It's more time that the GPU can go into its idle state. It's more time the CPU could go into its idle state, etc. So by doing frame rate limiting, they can extend the battery life of the machine while gaming. So here's an example. So this is an 860M. I don't know which revision of it. On Borderlands 2, running at 1080p. And the baseline is an hour and 26 minutes playing Borderlands 2. By just implementing frame rate targeting, they were able to boost that to an hour and 47 minutes. But with battery boost technology, which is frame rate targeting and other stuff, you get 2 hours and 11 minutes. Now, if you ask me what the other stuff is, I'm going to tell you that I don't know, because they don't want to say, right? They claim this is their secret sauce. They call it a driver level governor and can operate, quote, the CPU, GPU, and memory at peak efficiency. They're not adjusting CPU power states. They're not doing anything that dramatic. So
no, it's something as simple as Jensen Huang spit on each individual die that was going out of the factory, and that just improved it dramatically.
It could be. It could be. I'm going to say that it's probably more likely that the driver's doing things like requesting data from the processor less frequently. Maybe they found a way to optimize that. They can do it in larger chunks or smaller chunks and able to save battery life there. Lowering the compile times for shaders. Maybe they're doing pre-compiles, or they're saving that, or they're doing things a little bit differently than they would, because they're not going into the motherboard and changing power states of the CPU. They're not changing power states of the system memory. So what are they doing? All they're doing is, what are they controlling on their side, on their driver side, on their software side, that will then utilize the CPU less, utilize the memory bus less, and thus save power in the long run. The more times they can let the processor go into a sleep state, the better, right? The more time, the fewer cycles the processor needs, the better. So they're doing what they can on their side with the GPU driver to lessen what the workload of the CPU happens to be. And part of that is just by dropping the frame rate, you're going to lessen the workload of the CPU as well. So there's definitely some advantage there. And like, they have some numbers here. I didn't have a system yet to test. I'm supposed to get an MSI system in maybe later this week, maybe early next week. But Borderlands 2 saw 152% battery life increase, BioShock Infinite 150, and League of Legends was the big one at 197%, right? So that gives you kind of an idea of maybe the less GPU limited the game, the more advantage you'll get through their stuff, which is a little bit interesting. Well, I guess, if your frame rate was normally 200 frames per second and you're capping it at 30, that might be why you're seeing such a huge jump. That is available on Kepler and Maxwell-based GTX 800M. So if you have an 840 or an 830 and 820, those are not GeForce GTX parts. Those are just GeForce. So it's just GeForce 840M, but it's GeForce GTX 850M. So 850 and above will have support for battery boost. But all of the GTX 800 and the 700 series, going back, will also get support for Game Stream and Shadow Play, which are GeForce Experience features that desktop users have had for a while, but they're finally implementing back into desktop or into notebook platforms. So you'll be able to do the recording on your gaming laptop, and if you want to, you can do game streaming from your laptop in your house to Shield or whatever else you want to do. So those are the kind of the big announcements for their 800M. I mean, for the most part, we're talking about a rebranding. At the high end, they're introducing Maxwell, but 750 Ti parts are, how many shaders do those have? 640, I think. So the 860M is essentially a 750 Ti, or very close. And then the next part down is actually a new chip. I think that's GM108, I think. I'm trying to remember which one it was. But that's, when you get into the 840 and 830 parts that are smaller versions of Maxwell, it's actually a new architecture, but nothing on the high end. They didn't release like an 880 using Maxwell or something that would really, really entice us into looking further into it. But I think, like I said, we have a part coming in. We'll be able to test battery boost, and I'm curious to see how it's going to affect the gameplay experience, right? Because 30 frames per second is not a great frame rate necessarily, depending on the game.
Well, back in Voodoo 1 days, it's fantastic.
Right. Well, I don't want to go back to Voodoo 1 days necessarily.
Why not? It's the golden age of 3D acceleration.
I'm curious to see.
I had hair back in the Voodoo days.
I honestly don't believe you. Honestly.
No, it's a true story.
No, pictures didn't happen, I guess. The idea of cutting your frame rate, one of the other things I should point out is not in this initial release of GFE with battery boost support, but in a future one, you'll actually be able to have, and they'll be implemented by default, different image quality settings for when you're running on battery versus when you're running plugged into the wall, right? So if you start a game up when you're plugged in, you might be running at 1080p ultra settings and an uncapped frame rate. But if you disconnect from the wall and then you start the same game, maybe running at 1080p, medium preset, frame rate capped at 30. Right, there's going to be a difference there, and it'll be user adjustable, and you'll also be able to adjust what that frame rate target is. If you think 30 is crappy and you want 60, you can drag it up there, but your battery boost advantages will be lessened because of it. That'll be something that we'll be looking into and seeing how it actually changes with the hardware and how you change things. So, yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting technology. I think it's pretty interesting that it's taken this long for people to really dive into that. Most people don't really kind of focus on it. Well, what's your battery life while you're gaming? People always just kind of laugh it off and go, it's bad, right? Anytime we get an M17, Alienware gaming notebook, it's like, what's the battery life while you're gaming? It's like, not worth it. Whatever the answer is, it's not worth it. So
that $4,000 gaming laptop with SLI.
Yeah.
Yeah, 28 minutes.
28? That's a lot.
Yeah.
You could maybe get around to Hearthstone in. Maybe.
If you play that game.
All right, let's take a quick break here. We are going to bring in our sponsor. It's Rajiv, again, our good buddy from Coolermaster. Coolermaster is doing a great job. They're supporting us. They're supporting our podcast. They're supporting PC Perspective in general. And we would greatly appreciate it if you would pay attention to the following promotional consideration.
The Pulsar aluminum gaming headset by Coolermaster features 42mm drivers that deliver clear highs and powerful bass, immersing you in the action for a perfected audio experience. The aluminum ear plates can be customized to your personal style for a truly unique look. Built for customization and optimized for sound, you can learn more about the Pulsar at coolermaster-usa.com.
Hey, thank you, Coolermaster, for their support.
Rajiv.
Indeed. And we've got a giveaway. I think we're going to do that next podcast. I think we are with it. We can maybe use our fancy new bot.
Hey, I reviewed one of those headsets about a year and a half ago.
Oh, really?
And it was a surprisingly solid, I believe that I posted on the site.
Probably.
Did I not?
I don't know.
Okay, I did.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, as compared to other guys that had, 40mm drivers, this actually sounded nice. They designed it well, and it was, a good quality implementation. It had a big old metal puck that you put on your desk that had the volume control and a couple of buttons.
I like those.
Yeah, but, it was a nice product. I don't think I can sell mine on eBay because you need special drivers that were only given out to some reviewers, and I didn't get one of those drivers. But
and you're not bitter about it at all. Let's talk about some other items that happened this week. Razer has designed new mechanical switches. Who knows anything about mechanical switches? Because Scott's not on the show today. Alan, come on.
Yeah.
You know everything about everything. Did you see anything about this?
Okay, there I was in 1986, and I touched my first keyboard that had the IBM-style buckle switches, and it made this wonderful clacking sound whenever you did. And you had a whole classroom of people, of 14, 15-year-olds who were experiencing email for the very first time, and they wanted to email everybody in the school the things that they were doing. It was just clackety clack 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 clack, and the millions of clacks.
Are you still going with
through.
this?
What?
I don't know what he's even trying to talk about.
I don't know what he's talking about either.
So basically, these Razer switches are very similar to Cherry switches, but they just changed some of the stuff around
But they
to
clack.
optimize it. Well, they do the same, it's the same principle. It's just they changed the point, at how far down they go before they actuate, and how far back up they go.
Are we
before
talking
they...
high school again?
They may have changed some things too to get around trademark issues.
Yeah.
Well,
Getting
because I thought the
The patent expired.
Patent. Oh, yeah.
so they did not have to change around anything.
So
in theory.
these are the first non-Cherry mechanical switches. Is that correct? No?
Yeah, I also, I don't know. I think they're the most, or the
I thought that's what I saw.
I mean, if the patent expired, that means that pretty much anybody can
Right.
make these things, right?
Yeah.
So I guess over the next year, what might
says we're
potentially
going
happen is you might get some really cheap Cherry style switch.
Cherry style. And they can't use
Well-
that in any marketing terminology ever at all.
No, they won't
Yeah.
capitalize it. They'll just use lowercase cherry.
Yeah, there you go. So these they're calling these green switches because I guess Cherry didn't have a green before. Razer's color is green. It kind of makes sense. Green is an analogy of the Cherry MX Blue, and orange, which is analogous to the Cherry MX Brown. So the former is clicky, while the latter has a relatively silent bump. Thank you, Scott.
Josh, this is your cue.
Relatively silent bump.
I meant to type on your
Which
keyboard,
once,
but
oh no! I was going to say once you have children, then you can, you have to, work on the relatively silent.
Oh, Jesus. So these switches are going to be available in the Black Widow and Black Widow Tournament and Black Widow Stealth, I guess, models, shipping in late March. I think there are some reviews out there already if you're interested. I'd like to try them out. We've gone through a lot of keyboards here now. That Seasonic Topper. I'm going to go with the Topper. What kind of switch is that? The
Hopper.
electrostatic.
Topre,
But what's the type of switch? It's an electrostatic
capacitive.
capacitor. I like that keyboard. I've been using it for a long time and have not had any issues. So I didn't used to be a keyboard snob, but maybe I'll become one. I don't know. I doubt it. Some news coming out of GDC, which is next week. I guess it's not really coming out of GDC, but it's timed around GDC. Crytek has announced that CryEngine is getting Linux support.
Are you trying your Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Crytek is announced.
Yes, perfect.
Would you say it's a very muscular engine for its time?
It is. It also is very important for perhaps Valve's Steam Machine, SteamOS initiative, right? So this is the first, maybe not the first, I want to say that. This is the next engine, I guess, after Source has been ported to Linux, right? All of the, native Steam, all the native Valve-based games will run on Linux, but not a whole lot of other ones are. If they can get CryEngine, which isn't powering a ton of games right now, it's not like if they were to get Unreal working right away in the same fashion. But it's still pretty important to see another developer sign on to this. They, as Scott wrote here, the announcement gives promise to SteamOS as a viable gaming platform because games which license this engine would have an easier time porting over. That said, Unreal Engine has offered Linux compatibility for licensees to very limited uptake. So, SteamOS could change that trend, but somebody has to actually spend the time to develop it one way or the other. But another engine has moved over to Linux. So all you guys are formatting your machines, putting SteamOS on them tomorrow? Ken said he already did. So we're good. All right, nobody cares. Moving on. I'm sure you guys will be equally excited about this then. Valve's Direct3D to OpenGL translator is a thing. They've actually released it kind of publicly. It was one of those really cool things where I think it was just on like GitHub, right? Yeah, it's on Valve's GitHub page where you can just download the source and it says, hey, we don't support this at all and it may not work, but it worked for us in this one case. I think it only supports a limited subset of Direct3D 9.0c. So it's not exactly converting DirectX 11 to OpenGL. But if you were developing something on D3D9 and you want to convert it over to OpenGL and Linux and SteamOS, they've got a translator for you.
There's actually still a surprising number of games that use DX9.
Oh yeah,
Flying Wild Hog Studio, I think. That's what they're called. They made some games. People made Hard Reset. But the cool thing with this is that this may breathe new life into OpenGL. The last time we saw a really big OpenGL versus Direct3D battles was back in the Doom, Quake, Hexen days, quite a while ago.
Quake 2. Mm-hmm. Actually, no.
Dan Carter.
Quake 2. Okay, when was the original Call of Duty out? It used a Quake 3 engine, which was still OpenGL.
That was where GL Quake came out. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, Quake 3 Arena.
Yep.
Call of Duty was based on that same engine.
If you say
That was
so.
like the last major
was so
one.
long
Then
ago.
Call of Duty went to DirectX in Call of Duty 2 and beyond.
Well, didn't the original Unreal Engine use OpenGL or had an OpenGL?
It had capabilities, but it was crappy.
Sweet.
Otherwise, it was primarily Glide, and then software
hell yeah.
rendering. Then they added OpenGL and then Direct 3D.
Don't worry. Next year
I
we're
think
going
the
to have
Riva
all.
TNT came out.
Next year we're going to have all software rendering ray traced engines. So it's not even going to matter what we're talking about today.
It's going to be sweet.
It's going to be awesome.
And Carmack will rule the world.
No, he's making VR. He doesn't give a crap about rendering engines anymore.
Well, he was
no, he
a
doesn't
big
care about
ray tracing
rendering
guy there,
engines.
wasn't he? For the longest time.
No. He never thought ray tracing was going to take over rasterization engines, but a topic for different discussion. What else we put out this week? A video on a new Haswell NUC, the cleverly named D54250WYKH, which indicates that it's a D5, whatever that means. It's using a 4250 Intel processor, which I kind of know what that name means. The WYK, I don't know what the WY means. The K is the kit, and the H is hard drive. That's the new part. So this is essentially a Haswell NUC that has been updated to support not just MSATA storage, but it's a little bit bigger. It's a little bit chunkier, a little bit more cushion. It's taller.
Yeah.
It's taller. So now it has a bracket. I was trying to go to the place here in the video where we show the bracket. Holds a 2.5-inch drive, and it takes advantage of that oddly placed SATA power and data connection on the motherboard already, which is interesting. So now with this, you can have an MSATA for your system drive. You can have a 2.5-inch drive for storage. You can put an SSD in there if you want. You can put how big do the 2.5-inch drives go up to now, Alan? 2 terabytes?
Yeah, you can get them in 2, but the majority of them are 1.
Yeah. So if you can put a lot of storage in there now. You can get a terabyte SSD, MSATA SSD, a 2
That's good,
terabyte, 2.5-inch hard drive, have 3 terabytes inside a NUC, and then
And you can
something.
fry an egg on top of it.
No, it doesn't get hot. It doesn't get that hot.
Oh, whatever.
Or if you're not finding good prices on MSATA, then you can just get a 2.5-inch
Right.
SSD.
Right. You don't have to have an MSATA to use this form factor anymore. It's a little bit taller, but you can get a 2.5-inch drive in there, which I think is pretty cool. Similarly, we posted a video today of another NUC style device. This is the Gigabyte Brix Projector, otherwise known as the BXPI3-4010. These tiny computers have great naming schemes, I think you'll find.
I think Gigabyte has pretty much rohypnoled most people in Intel, and they're adopting all of the Gigabyte terminology for their products.
Perfect. Great.
Yes.
So what's interesting about this, as the name would imply, it has a projector attached to it. If you look at this picture, the bottom half of it essentially is a computer, like a NUC, like a 4-inch by 4-inch computer under there. And the top part is just a glued on kind of mini projector.
It looks like a log cabin.
It kind of does. It kind of does.
Great for stacking.
So you can see you've got 2 USB on the front. You've got your lens there. You've got your focus knob on that side. You've got HDMI mini DP out, USB 3, gigabit Ethernet, and then you've got actually mini HDMI in, so that, and you got a projector on off button. They actually kind of operate independently. When you hit the power button on top of the system, I don't have a picture of the top, but when you hit the power button on top of it to turn the computer on, it doesn't actually turn the projector on. You have to hit that button on the back separately.
Do you have to have a cable that connects the front to the back?
No, you do not.
Oh, that's good.
No, you
because
do not.
that would be
The mini HDMI in is you can connect any other input to it. A DVD player. Today, Ken and I hooked up the Xbox One into it, projected it onto the wall, played Titanfall, attempted to play Titanfall on it. You could do that with a DVD player or any other thing that has an HDMI output. And you can turn the projector on only if you have an HDMI input connected without having the computer on. Or obviously you can have them both on at the same time. So it's kind of interesting. And then it's directly connected to the to the output on the machine, right? Because you can use any two display outputs. You can use the projector and the HDMI, the projector and the display port, or you can use the HDMI and the display port outputs from the device if you don't want to use the projector at all for some odd reason that you would buy this and not use the projector. Inside, though, I mean, it's just a normal system. It's a normal NUC, right? You've got 2 SODIMM slots for DDR3L. You've got mini PCIe for wireless. You've got an mSATA for storage. And the hardware in it is a little bit slower than other ones. It's a Core i3-4010, which is actually a dual-core hyper-threaded part with a 1.7 gigahertz clock speed. It does not have turbo boost, so it's 1.7 is the top speed. The projector specifications are a little bit low. 854 by 480 is the resolution, and 75 lumen output, which is obviously not that great. It's you're not gonna put this in your living room and full daylight be able to see it very well. But I was kind of impressed with how bright it would get. We have some pull down shades in our office that are kind of a matte white color, and we were able to use that with the shade half open so the daylight was coming in, and it worked pretty well. You have issues with the
Did you use candid photography?
What?
Candid photography?
No.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
No.
Say no more.
No.
Damn it.
I missed it totally. Or your jokes are bad. One or the other. We can both pick.
Probably both.
The 854 by 40 resolution is a little bit of a limiting factor because nothing is built for resolution like that anymore. Browsing the web, you're going to have a horizontal slider bar. You're going to have Steam doesn't go small enough to fit inside an 854 by 480 window. So if you use big picture mode, though, it kind of fixes it. Windows doesn't have any problems with it. You make a browser full screen, it works. You can watch YouTube videos on it. It had some interesting use cases with it, which is, it's a Pico projector attached to a NUC. It's priced a little bit steep at $550. And that seems pretty expensive, especially considering you don't get the mSATA drive, you don't get your memory with it. It does come with a wireless module. But apparently Pico mini projectors of this same type of caliber, 50 to 100 lumens, are going to run you $250 to $350 as it is. So, the fact that you're getting something like that with a somewhat underpowered NUC device, it's not a horrible deal in terms of value if you have a use for a system with a projector in it. Why would you use that? Gigabyte gives examples like, hey, if you're a business person and you go from meeting to meeting, but you don't always know if they have a projector in there, and you don't carry on a big, heavy one, you can do this for some sales meetings, quick and easy. If you've got family coming over and you want to send those annoying children upstairs, but there's no TV, send them this. Maybe you should set it up first, but hook this up, have it project just onto a wall, and now they can watch YouTube videos and get into trouble on the internet or whatever you wanted to do. There are some interesting places for this. I think most people would still rather have a mini projector as a separate unit that you could then upgrade, whatever computer or device attaches to it. But for the price, I think it's an interesting kind of spot in the market. What did you guys think? Would you find any use for this? Would you have this for any purpose, Alan?
I think the resolution is just kind of a deal breaker for it.
Yeah, too low.
Yeah, it's just too much of an oddball resolution. I mean, if it's just something maybe a little bit higher.
It's WVGA.
Yeah, okay.
It's got a letter attachment to it.
Sure.
Okay, engineers who are going to talk about proposals. The place where I work, they don't care about resolution. They just want PDFs to get on the screen.
Right.
But why wouldn't you just buy a Pico projector and use an HDMI cable to your laptop, which you already carry?
Because they don't own laptops. These are engineers who do not like computers.
Oh.
And a lot.
You
and a
would
lot
be
of the office
surprised how
conference
many
rooms already
engineers do not like computers and don't know how to run one.
They use a slide rule.
Yes.
Oh, they don't use a slide rule.
We still use
Come
stuff that
on.
requires DOS that
No,
they've
a
never
lot-
wanted to go away from. They all have the HP calculators from 1983 on their desk, and that's their primary tool. And these guys are like 26 years old.
Somebody needs to beat them.
Most of
Maury,
the
go ahead.
guys at my work would, I mean, that would probably serve for an office, conference room projector,
Yeah.
because a lot of projectors we have in the office in the conference rooms aren't much better than WVGA. I mean, it's and they're expensive as all get out too for those projectors.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, here you can see this video. Like, this is the projector working on one of our walls here. And you can see the horizontal scroll bar that you have to have even for our site that is designed for 1024 by 768. Like,
That is a
resolution.
sweet hoodie you got
You
there.
like that? That's Star Wars characters on there. You can't tell, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
What, like, the purpose that I would have, like, they want this back, which is unfortunate because I had already found a perfect purpose for it. I was going to mount it on the ceiling upside down, pointing it at one of those blinds that's right by my office, and have it permanently displaying the kind of live statistics of the website, like who's on, what's the most popular article going on, where are the most links coming in, all that kind of stuff. And it'd be a great, like, look up, there's the status of your system. The only other drawback I forgot to mention, and it's kind of annoying, is the fan on the projector is really loud. Like, it's a tiny fan, it's pretty loud. I do have it sitting here, don't I? Let me see if I can. I have to power this on before I can turn on the projector part. Uh-oh. Did we unplug it? I think it might have been unplugged. No, it was just on. We unplugged it. Was it? Yeah. Well, that's probably not good for it. Oh, there we go.
Breaking shit.
So,
You can hear it.
can you hear it?
Yeah.
And that's actually pointed away from you. So here's the sound level with the projector on.
Oh, that's.
Now it's obviously I've got
Is that Thomas the Tank Engine?
I've got it right up next to the microphone, right? So it's a little bit of a poor example.
So we
but-
joke
Hold on.
about PC fans being hair
Hold on.
dryers and such.
Hold on, this is on, and now I'll turn it off. On.
Uh-huh. Ooh.
Yeah, so like I was going to do a modification of this where I rip it open, take that tiny ass fan out, and
broke it.
put like a big, kind of, maybe a 120 millimeter in there somehow.
Because unsealing
power it.
projector units is a good idea.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's tiny. Whatever. So it's a really cool device that almost works great. Like the price is a little bit too high, the fan's a little bit too loud, the resolution is a little bit too low. But obviously, if you want to fix all of those, you're going to have to raise the price. So, we'll see. I still think it can be useful for some people, as you guys are demonstrating. I think this is our second to last news story. Also from Scott about GDC 14, Mozilla and Epic Games run Unreal Engine 4 in Firefox. This is right up Scott's alley. Right up there. Epic Games has been wanting Unreal Engine in the web browser for quite some time. Back in 2011, the company presented their Citadel demo running in Flash. A short while later, Mozilla and Epic ported it to raw JavaScript and WebGL. So now, let's see. Epic's Tim Sweeney and Mark Ray in an interview with Gamma Sutra said that Unreal Engine 4 will take it beyond a demo and target web browsers as a supported platform. So they're saying that ASM.js, which is the implementation, can now reach within 67% of native performance, and Mozilla is still optimizing their compiler. It's difficult to write the code by hand. Companies like Epic are simply compiling their existing C++ code through mscripten into that optimized JavaScript. So you can see here, let me rewind this a little bit. This is just running in a browser, an HTML file of some kind that is running Unreal Engine 4 natively in the browser. Pretty nifty.
Nice engine.
Nice engine you got there.
Nice.
Nice.
I
Epic
sure hate to
Swing
see
Ninja
it
demo.
break.
It'd be a shame if it were to crash your entire machine. So that's cool. They'll have that running on their booths at the GDC show floor. So we'll see if we can stop by and see that. And finally, NVIDIA announces new GeForce game bundles today. Purchasers of certain GeForce GTX desktop and GeForce 700 and 800M mobile series graphics cards. These new bundles will offer up to will offer up a redeemable code for the Unreal Engine 4 powered survival horror game Daylight. I'm going to be honest with you. I had not heard of this until this GeForce bundle came my way. Have you guys heard of Daylight before?
It was only a really bad Sylvester Stallone movie years back.
Okay. So it's not that anymore. It is the first game to be released using Unreal Engine 4. So that's kind of why it's getting a lot of attention. Because it's going to have all of the Unreal Engine 4 features and all the NVIDIA, kind of technologies built in there. So they're definitely going to be pushing that. And then also, looks like you're going to get to choose. No, wait, hold on. The other option is $150 of in-game currency for free-to-play titles that include, where's that at? New Earth, Path of Exile, and Warface. Again, I will say...
You're going to say... Got to get me some of that virtual money. You know what I mean?
Yes, correct. But the idea of getting $150 of in-game currency for a $150 GTX 750 Ti is kind of interesting, right? I don't know any of those games again, and I feel like, am I missing out? Are we old now that we don't know these things? Ken, you're young. You know about these games, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. Actually, here's New Earth. It's kind of popular. It's a MOBA.
Okay, all right.
All right. I got that
all I
much.
know is that sometimes small children steal your debit card and they go onto DC Universe online and
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you buy a $150 in-game currency with a GTX 650 or 750 series graphics card. Yeah. So $150 worth of in-game currency for a $150 video card. Not a bad thing, even if it's a thing you don't use very often, or you only know what one of the games is. I don't know.
I'm
At
surprised
least they're
they didn't,
trying.
I'm surprised they didn't try to bundle in the new Wolfenstein game with that, because that game looks like it's going to be neat.
Well, those are going to cost more money, probably. It's kind of interesting because you really don't hear about AMD's bundles at all anymore. Are they still running those? I think I see that. Like, if you look on Newegg, you still see bundles listed for that, don't you? I mean, you can't find the cards in stock, really. But if you did, do they have bundles with them? Because I know that used to be the big push, and they're kind of waiting there. I don't know if there's another wave of games coming out that they're going to start redoing that. Let's go ahead and get into our hardware software picks of the week. I'm going to go first because I already talked about mine, and I'm just going to unplug it. Is there an operating? It doesn't matter. It was this. This is the Gigabyte Brix Projector BXP i3 4010.
Otherwise known as the Whaler.
It's just interesting. It's just a very unique product. And I don't know. I don't know how many people should buy it. I'm not recommending everybody that listens to this to go buy it, but if you have hey, it would be really cool if, Ken was hey, you could put this on a Gorilla Pod, put it on top of your monitor, and have it point to the wall behind your monitor, and now you have a larger display, like a third display. You can just use it as an HDMI input, right? But if you're going to do that, just spend $300 on a mini projector and do that anyway. So you need to use the computing aspect of this in some capacity. The Gigabyte example, again, was, hey, if you're a kid and you're in a dorm, you don't have a lot of space, you can use this as a computer, right? Hook it up to a monitor for browsing the web, working on homework or whatever kids do these days. I don't know. And then, hook up your Xbox to it and use the projector to play, whatever you want on the screen, or not on the screen, but on the wall, right? I don't know. Now I guess if you hook up a 1080p source to this, it's still going to be displayed at 854 by 480.
I mean, if you could extend or you can mirror. Oh, wait, no, not.
But if I have an Xbox One hooked up to this,
oh yeah,
it's outputting at 480.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there are only so many pixels.
Yeah, on that.
Don't tell Sharp that;
lens.
they'll argue.
Who?
Sharp has a 1080p display they're calling 4K. That's just like a sub-pixel thing. I don't know.
So anyway, that was my hardware software pick. I guess don't buy that yet. I'm still figuring out.
Crap. Okay, it was fun.
So I see, Josh, you have your link in here. Alan, I don't see a link in here for yours.
He left.
Oh, Alan.
Alan's gone already?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to Josh. Josh, you like SSDs.
Why are you
what's your
calling
pick?
Alan?
I just got Alan on my mind. What can I say?
That's kind of sad. Okay, so,
Go.
anyway. I've been sitting here for years and years, with an OCZ Agility 3 240 gig. Years. It's done okay. It's done okay for me. Nice fast booting. Seems to be okay. Hasn't crashed yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
Not crashing is a positive thing.
But you know what? I'd like to put more games on there to, have faster loads. Less timely, well, more timely, I guess, interludes in between stages. And so I got this. I actually bought this myself without any help from friends. It's the Evo 500 gig. It says $276.99 here, but it was actually $260 from where I got it from.
Fine.
With shipping.
Okay.
But at least that one has the code, so it's really worth it for you to use the code.
Indeed. All right. Maury, what do you have?
Water cooling.
Of course.
The biggest, yeah, of course. QuakeCon's coming up. It's time to start pimping the system out again. The biggest rage now in water cooling is acrylic tubing.
Foam tray no longer provided.
Yes. Basically, what this is a kit. It's an acrylic tubing kit that it includes benders or bend radiuses, a cutter. It also includes a smoother. Because the thing with acrylic tubing is it's hard. It's basically plexiglass tubing, right? And you have to heat it up to bend it. You have to sand it down when you cut it, because if there's any kind of cracks or anything in it, it will leak on you. So it's a little bit of a pain to use, but it looks really nice in the system. And a lot of the water cooling manufacturers, Premachill, Monsoon, a couple of the others are coming out with acrylic tubing now. So,
I always, Ken reminded me of what we were talking about here, and those systems at QuakeCon were pretty cool looking that had the fixed tubing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So it's just become more mainstream this year.
A bender
a lot
kit.
of those fixed tubing systems
I saw that on Futurama.
were major custom jobs. A lot of people still like to use all metal tubing.
Whiskey and Whores, or
copper,
blackjack,
aluminum.
yeah.
Cool. So is your system going to have this type of water cooling in it this year?
I'm thinking about it. I'm still doing some research because the problem with acrylic tubing is that it is very sensitive to the additives you put in. If you have any kind of ethylene glycol or alcohol-based stuff in there for
then
corrosion
your cats
inhibition,
are gonna die
then
from licking the
crack
cracks. Yeah.
Don't kill your cats.
You have to run some kind of corrosion inhibitor in most systems because if you have nickel plating and copper or aluminum or anything like that, it will cause galvanic corrosion. One of my key terms if you read the all-in-one water reviews. But we'll see. I mean, I'm still playing with it. I'm thinking about it.
Sounds like a lot of work. Sounds like something I would not do. But it would be something I'm like, hey, are you guys doing that? Why don't you make some for me too? Awesome. I get a system. I should do that for QuakeCon this year, right, Ken? We should water cool a system.
I've never done that before. I've never done a custom loop.
You've never done a custom loop before?
We should do a video on doing a custom loop.
Failing miserably.
Well,
building a custom water.
That would be just more entertaining. Right?
Yeah. It'd be interesting.
It's not hard.
I don't see when I make videos like that, people just make fun of me because they're like, "Oh, you're supposed to know everything," blah blah blah, and then the YouTube comments hurt my feelings.
Rip Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, like the Raspberry Pi.
But Ryan, now on
Yeah.
YouTube, you'll know who's making fun of you though, so you can get back at them because you can't anonymous.
Right. Then I'm gonna go to their door like in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and I'm gonna have a giant printout. Be like, back on March 14th, did you say? And then I'm going to punch him in the nose. So that's Alan. Alan had to step out to take care of something, so he is not here to give us his hardware pick of the week. I think it's sitting on the wrong airplane for too long. That's his pick of the week.
No, it's Girls season 1 because he had to watch that.
Well, he had to finish that episode. That's why he didn't get off the plane.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Because, Lena Dunham naked does it for Alan.
Well, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Or with Alan. Yeah, think about it.
Yeah.
Think about it. Thank you guys for joining us again. If you want to watch us record this live, it's pcper.com/live, Wednesdays at 10 p.m. You can go to pcper.com/subscribe to sign up for the mailing list, and we'll let you know when we were doing live events. I apologize for anybody that showed up for our Titanfall live stream yesterday that did not happen. It's not our fault. It's the server's fault because they were crappy. And they still kind of continue to be crappy because we were thinking about doing it today before the podcast, and we kept having intermittent server issues. And there's nothing better than people love watching than systems crash repeatedly on a live stream. Am I right? Like, who would ever watch that? Who would ever continue to come back to the website for that? So pcper.com/podcast, that's obviously where you can find the RSS, the links to the MP3 files, the YouTube channel, and with the URL you should send to people so that they will continue to enjoy our wonderful banter and hardware knowledge and information. Next week's going to be an interesting week. I'll be at GDC. We'll have to figure out who's going to be on the podcast and when. We may do it later or earlier or different. Not sure yet. We'll figure that out. But we will have one because with DX12 stuff happening, we need to discuss it. So thanks guys for joining us. We'll see you next week sometime. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Mari Titleman.
And Alan was here too. Bye, everybody.